Hello, everyone. I got my peanuts over here, but I'm not going to eat any right now. I'm good. Excuse me. All right, so this is part 4. We ran a little over last time, but then I didn't really do any talking. I was too busy eating. Sorry, but it was good. It was a good video, too, so I didn't really have much to say. Video time.
It is not just like it is an ongoing injustice that has been happening. Now, I mean,
where would you criticize, if you're being fair-minded, where would you criticize from 48 onwards the behavior of the Arab side?
well, put yourself in the Arab side. At 1948, you constituted 70% of the population. Suddenly, the UN is giving you 48% of the land, right? Not just that, I mean, the Arab regimes, because they did terribly, and see, this is the thing, like, Arab nationalism at the height of these people feed on each other, you know, because it's very, very important to have a problem. Oh, it's Israel, and for Israel, oh, it's the Palestinian. It's a very good distraction. I mean, sometimes I feel that like the Palestinian cause is very useful for both sides to stay there as attention because it's always a way to reflect. But and this is a very important question because in the mind of the Western audience, they always thought of the Palestinian resistance or the Palestinian side as like Islamic, as militant. No, as a matter of fact, some of the early suicide bombers were female Christian Palestinians because they, like the IRA, you know, they were fighting for a land. The whole idea of Islamization of the whole cause came very later. As a matter of fact, you will find this very interesting because when I saw this, I did not believe it. This, you know, the Fatah movement, which is the PLO, the Fatah. This was their slogan. Can you see? You see there's a crescent, a cross, and a menorah. And they say unitary, democratic, non-sectarian. So basically in the 1960s, Fatah were basically marijuana-smoking, tree-hugger hippies. And yet that didn't work, right? And the thing is, I always hear that like Arabs were giving 4 so many chances for peace. That is not true. As a matter of fact, all along history, Israel didn't give an inch of land by peace. 1973 war, they gave back Sinai because Egypt like initiated the war. 2006, they went out of south of Lebanon because of the resistance they have. Even the disengagement of Gaza, they didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart because they had too much casualties. And even the Oslo Accords, the peace treaty, the one that Isaac Rabin and got the Nobel Prize for, they did it because of the Intifada. So what is the message that Israel is giving to the Arabs? I will never give you anything with peaceful resolution. You will always have to fight for it.
Do you not think that, for example, I mean, Bill Clinton feels this very strongly, that there was a great deal to be done, and Arafat, just in the end, having indicated the whole time that if we got to this place, there would be a deal, just walked away. That was the closest that everybody came, and that actually, I mean, could Clinton have done any more than he tried to do then?
I am not, again, that's why it's very important to have people who are much more qualified than me to talk about this. But 2 things I can say about that. Number one, the whole thing about the Oslo Accord, there was a video for Netanyahu who was talking to the settlement offer in 2001, and he was bragging about sabotaging. He was talking to them, I was like, I sabotage, it's like there was going to be no peace. Yeah, you've seen that, right? Yeah. And in that video, if you remember, when he was saying like you have to hit them hard, 2001, no Hamas at the time. They were talking about the Palestinian Authority. We have to hit them, we have to kill them, we have to make them feel the pain. And then one of them says like Bibi, but wouldn't America kind of just like, so what? The American public is easily manipulated. 80% are with us. It is absurd. And as a new American, where I can have the privilege of being retrospectively angry, I said like, this guy is mocking the government and the people who have been with him all the time. It's like, oh, they can be easily manipulated. They can do it. And even, by the way, even Isaac Rabin, the one who actually did the peace accord, he was known famously, say, the way to actually beat those children is to break their bones, called the broken bones policy.
Just to chime in, I remember Clinton having the Middle East peace discussion, and I always thought it was a great idea. But in the end, whatever agreement both sides came to, there was nothing Bill Clinton could do, to hold either side accountable. It was basically a peace treaty in name, and we're both going to honor it until we don't want to honor it. And it's kind of like all the time that Bill Clinton spent trying to get both sides together, in the end, that was just a waste of his time, because one side isn't going to honor it. The other side is looking to somehow get out of it. Both sides understand that they need something, and they're going to humor, Clinton, because they liked him, they respected him. But in the end, he's not there. If this peace negotiation gets thrust aside and fighting starts, is Bill Clinton going to show up in a helicopter to land and go, "Hold on, everybody. No, we're not doing this"? No, he's not. No one was showing up. So it's back to the way it was. It's just that we have this piece of paper here that says, piece of paper says we have peace. Great. Piece of paper is no different than toilet paper. So, it was just, I thought it's a nice idea, but it was just a waste of time, because why would, there isn't anything that any kind of, and even sanctions, there isn't any kind of a sanction or any kind of a thing that says if you stop honoring this will happen. Because what's he going to do? What's Bill Clinton going to do? Nothing.
Like, get those kids and break their bones on the pavement. So this the whole idea about like Israel wanted peace and Arabs only wanted to fight is a very, very bad representation.
I actually think as it's gone on, the genuine will on both sides for peace has not existed.
No.
I think it's been a deceit to the world.
No, I'm sorry.
And to the relative groups of people on both sides.
The official...
And actually a betrayal of them.
The official stand of the Palestinian Authority, and again, I cannot speak, it is very difficult to do this. The official stand of the Palestinian Authority is that we are just happy with 22% of the land. Just give us like that. Yes, there are people that dissent, but the thing is, you cannot just say, okay, let's talk about peace. And then you take away my land. Let's talk about peace. And there's a kind of like passive aggressiveness happening. Oh, let's talk about it, but I'm going to build settlements. I'm going to suffocate your cities and your villages.
See, I think that has been incredibly inflammatory.
Yes.
Worsening the situation. I think putting back the chance of peace. I mean, Netanyahu, I interviewed Netanyahu earlier this year in the middle of the big social protests in his own country. And I couldn't understand what he thought he was doing, except that it seemed to me political expediency, that he had to get power. Again, he had put a bunch of right-wing headbangers into his cabinet who have incredibly bad records, speak in an incredibly incendiary way about Palestinians, for example. And he did this for power. And then he launched, because they were pushing him to do it, a ridiculous assault on the integrity of the Supreme Court, the independence of the Supreme Court. And many Israelis rose up. So Netanyahu has become, to me, a big problem. Right? And the people, all the polling shows that. Israeli people are very unhappy with Netanyahu. I don't think he's ever going to actually want to forge peace. And in fact, I think he was instrumental with Hamas in wanting to keep them in power, because he felt that would create the split with the Palestinians, with two political groups, and that would be good for Israel.
And it was leaked in a Likud conference in 2019 that he was bragging about giving Hamas money because this is a way that we can keep Palestinians divided, and yet we will never have one. So this is a guy who was.
But look, we can agree about Netanyahu, I think.
No,
right?
But not just Netanyahu. There's a book.
I would say most of his cabinet.
There's a book called The Fear of Peace. It's by Moshe Zimmerman. And he's an Israeli historian, and he said, like, the average Israeli citizen does not have a vision of peace. Because for 70 years, this is a country that has been, the war has been going on for, they have been expanding because of war, the military is taking over. So the whole idea of peace is not even there. It's not just Netanyahu. Like you have, I remember you have.
Sometimes you have a person who gets into power, and they get into power by telling everyone, all these people here are going to attack us, and I can protect us. I can stop it. And then people are just like, oh, they could be, maybe he knows something that I don't. They get into power. There was never a real threat. Obviously, there's always a possibility. Just like there's a possibility that Mexico and Canada could suddenly decide, you know, that whole United States thing, we're tired of them. It's never going to happen. But you understand, it's better. That was a terrible analogy, actually, because it's just not going to happen. But there is a better analogy of the Middle East that could happen. Could happen, but, you know, no one wants to die because of it. So there's that reason to stop. So somebody gets into power and puts the fear in everyone that it's coming. People vote them in because they're seeing something that we're not seeing, right? And if these people are always affected by war for 70 years, then they want somebody who is going to be strong and stand up to any kind of threat of violence that's going to come against them. But that violence doesn't come. So there are two ways to look at it. They're not going to attack because they know who I am. And they fear retribution from me. That's one. Two, the person says, I got to get them to attack. Otherwise, when my next term comes up and nothing's happened, some people will say nothing happened because of that person, and other people will say, you think we were lied to? And so the new messaging would be, they're going to attack. We know they're going to. They're going to attack. And then maybe you are instigating things. But you're not letting your people know that, but you are instigating things. And then that attack happens. And now you use that attack that you scared your people enough to voting you into power that was going to happen. Now you've provoked it to happen. You pull yourself back and say, listen, they did this. So now you use that as an excuse to stay into power. You want to win this war? You got to keep me in power. So they do. Well, then that person's term ends, and maybe it's a short war. That person's term is going to end. Well, they don't want to give up the power. So they try to instigate something else. And eventually, that person is going to do everything they can to stop peace agreements, to instigate attacks, to keep their people mentally in fear of a potential attack that they're instigating without their people knowing. And it's a person in power doing everything they can to hold on to that power, is basically what I'm saying. And I don't know much about Netanyahu, but I've heard from a lot of sources that, and by sources again, journalists and stuff like that, who don't have a high opinion of him. Some do. Some like him because he's a projection of power in Israel. And others are like, yeah, he is, but he's also a beacon for instigating fights. He's just as bad at the head as another person is at the head of their terrorist organization, because that person needs violence to keep his power. And that's what some people say about Netanyahu. Now, is it true? Don't know. But when you look at things, it kind of seems like it. Not saying it's 100% accurate, because again, I can never say anything's 100% accurate. Everything will be skewed with what I hear. But you know, it is kind of a playbook that some people will use of fear. You know, you need me because this country isn't safe, kind of thing. And I'm not getting into the politics of the world or the U.S. or this or that. I'm just saying this is just something that happens. It does happen around the world.
I've interviewed Naftali Bennett.
Yes.
And I think you tweeted that like that was like a very kind of reasonable take. Yeah.
I don't think that's reasonable. No.
Yeah. But like this Naftali, he went after Queen Rania, and he called up shame on Queen Rania.
No, I didn't say reasonable. I just said this. I did a fire emoji.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just said what he was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to ask you about Queen Rania, and let's ask about, since you've raised it.
Yeah.
Because Queen Rania accused the West of a glaring double standard. She said, it's the first time in modern history there's such human suffering, and the world is not even calling for a ceasefire. So the silence is deafening, and to many in our region, it makes the Western world complicit. Now, other people said, well, okay, if you feel that strongly, why aren't you taking in any Palestinians? Why is Egypt not taking Palestinians? Why does the Arab world want to constantly attack Israel without actually offering any place to go for the Palestinians? And what do you say to that?
That is exactly what Israel wants. And that is exactly what might actually starts Third War III. This is the war solution. These are Palestinians. These are their lands. And then suddenly take them. Why? So they've been basically kicked around from their homes. And now another country should take them? You see what will happen? Imagine this. Now. And because Israeli official has been talking openly about this. It's like, why don't they just go in Sinai? Why they go? You know what would happen? Those people are going to be pushed in Sinai. And with any population, 2 million people, they are living in refugee camp. What do you think will happen? Unrest, chaos. And then after a few years, the Western media will come with their cameras like, oh, look at those Arabs. Oh, they're killing each other. Oh, Israel is good that they got rid of them. And then they will go to the West Bank. And suddenly those 3.5 million people push into Jordan. The whole idea, why does Jordan take them? Why does Egypt take them? The same question. Europe has 44 countries. Why don't they take Israel? America has 50 states. Why don't they give them Florida? I mean, we seem to complain about Florida the whole time. Why don't they just like give Israel? The whole idea was like, oh, you're Arabs, you're all the same. No. Because what will happen then? So Israel will move into Jordan? That's like, oh, Saudi, why don't you take the Jordanian?
So
this is not a solution. This is not a solution.
Bassem, I hear you. I'm not taking a position the other way. Let me ask you directly.
But I want to say something about what Queen Radia said.
Okay.
The whole idea about like the West.
Yeah.
I think that in 3 weeks, Israel morally corrupted the West like no other. I think the West will have a lot of time to recover because for years, the West has been telling us, oh, look, we're liberal. We're all about human rights. All are equal. Adopt our values. And then suddenly, but you don't want to even to cease. We don't want to even tell Israel to stop. And suddenly we wake up and we found McDonald's are giving free meals to the Israeli because like nothing will make you feel better after killing a bunch of Palestinian kids than a Happy Meal.
So let me ask you this.
They have a toy.
So this brings me to Hamas, okay? So what Israel will say, because they say it to me every time they come on the program, whoever from Ehud Barak to Natalie Bennett, whoever it may be, they say, look, we suffered such a catastrophic terror attack on October the 7th that we have decided we are going to get rid of Hamas. There are 40,000 or so Hamas terrorists in their eyes who need to be got rid of. And I do believe they're terrorists. Only terrorists can commit the kind of act of terrorism we saw. So can we, on that point, can we agree on that? Do you believe Hamas is a terror group?
It is classified by America as I'm not a big fan of Hamas, and they are a militant group. That does like stuff that...
Are they terrorists, do you think?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So we agree on this. So you have 40,000 of them living in Gaza amongst the civilian population. If Israel has decided to eliminate a terror group, Hamas, as the world did with ISIS, for example, and I think there are a lot of parallels given the way they behaved on October the 7th to ISIS, how do you do it? How do you do it if you don't do it the way Israel is currently trying to do it?
Exactly not the way that Israel does it, because if you have...
And I said in an earlier video, it's not like Hamas is walking around with shirts that say Hamas soldier. You know, they're not going to separate themselves by wearing... And they might be... I don't know, honestly. They might have military outfits. Maybe they're wearing regular clothes to blend in with normal Palestinians. Getting into Israel, blending in with Israelis. I have no idea. But I can tell you that I don't think they're going to be walking around holding a flag, that says Hamas member. They're not going to distinguish themselves amongst normal people, because that will get them killed. That's just... I know that they have war crime things where you're not supposed to blend in with civilians and do this and I understand that. Rarely is that followed. But it's so difficult. It's difficult. I'm going to let him go a couple more minutes, and then we'll hiccup, and then we'll end this. Ow!
One of the most advanced military powers in the world, and it takes you 3 weeks, 9,000 Palestinian civilian death, 21,000 injured. As we are talking right now, Israel just bombed Jabalia, which is a known refugee camp. This is not self-defense. Like one of the most questions, like, does Israel have the right to defend itself? This is a no-value question. This is a no-value question.
Well, I would ask a different point. I would say not only do they have a right to defend themselves, which every country would after a terror attack, right? But they actually have a duty and responsibility to their population to try and stop that happening again to them.
They've been doing...
And I do understand, and I agree with that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If it takes you all of that time, all of these civilians, to take out a few hundred guerrilla fighters...
We don't know how many of the people...
A few thousand.
We don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but Bassem, you don't know and I don't know.
We don't know, but
right? We don't even know if the casualty numbers are correct, because they're all coming from Hamas.
And we should believe Israel?
No, not necessarily, no. No, I don't believe either side.
But here's my problem with Israel.
But here's my point. I don't think we should assume that we know these statistics are correct. I don't think we should assume we know exactly how many children are being killed. We do know a lot have been killed, so the moral argument remains the same. But we don't know how many Hamas terrorists have been killed in the last 3 weeks. We just don't know, do we?
So basically, we're dealing with a very incompetent military force that has been sucking America dry for years, and then they cannot do the job.
But how else do they get rid of Hamas?
Not like that.
How do they do it?
I don't know, but not like that, because they've been trying.
You've got to have another.
They have. First of all, I'm not a military expert. Second of all, they've been trying the same thing for years. They go in. This is not an eye for an eye anymore. This is an eye, a limb, a life, a house, a neighborhood, a whole population for an eye.
They don't see. I mean, your friend Ben Shapiro, that you particularly despise.
Oh, I love Ben Shapiro. He's very smart.
Oh, yeah, but you've been very critical. I mean, that's fair enough. I'm sure he would be of you. But when I asked him about proportion, he said I don't care about a proportionate response.
So let's kill civilians as
Hamas did this, so we are going to get rid of Hamas.
But
it's not in his eyes. It wasn't eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It was this group of terrorists did this, and we are now going to rid the world of these terrorists.
And this is very important to look at things in context. When you see how Israelis talk inside their community, there was a very famous post by Uriel Eritzol. He is the speechwriter of Netanyahu. He said, "What is so horrific about understanding that the whole Palestinian people are our enemies? All of them are enemy combatants. We should kill them, kill their mother, destroy their homes, the homes that they raised those snakes, so no snakes will be raised in this house anymore." And this was reposted by Ali Chaket, which is the Minister of, wait for it, Justice.
I'm going to end that there. Yeah, you can't. You can't, like when 9/11 happened for the U.S., Osama bin Laden and, the Al-Qaeda group was who was targeted. And I would like to say that was who they focused their attention on. Did civilians get killed? Absolutely. It sucks. But having said that, if you're going after this group, this terror group that lives inside this country, you cannot categorize every person in that country as an enemy. You lose when you do that. You absolutely lose. Because there are some people in that country that agree with you. They are terrible. Some people disagree with you and will protect those people. And they hate the people who agree with you because they're against them. Yeah. As I said, this is just, it's it's a topic that it just can't have a peaceful ending. It really just can't. And he had a good point. Why not put them in, donate a state in the U.S. or in this place or this place or this place? Because it comes down to the problem's easier when it's over there. When it's out of arm's reach. When I don't have to deal with it. That's when it's okay. And that's what a lot of those countries did. It's just, it's not going to go away. So, there's a thanks button. This was a donated request. You can donate too. And you can even request videos if you do donate, and I'll do them. You don't have to. There's a subscribe button. Give a thumbs up. That helps just as much as a donation, because that helps on the opposite end with YouTube. You can give a thumbs up, and if you want to give a thumbs down, we're doing the snapping turtle challenge. And that is when we put your genitals in front of the mouth of a snapping turtle. Big old alligator snapping turtle. And then we just let them bite you. And then we move on to the next person. We'll put a little bit of Neosporin, rubbing alcohol, whatever it takes to kind of, keep out the bacteria, kill any bacteria infection. But you will continue to bleed out. We're not saints. So until next time, have a good day, have a good night.